So I met one of your freshman wrestlers on Monday. I'm his advisor or whatever for freshmen admissions. Andrew DePree. Yeah. Seems like a good kid. Yeah. Pretty good conversation. Seems like it's going well. Yeah, got some size. Yeah. What would he wrestle at? 215, 210?
We don't have that weight class. I'm hoping that to get him down to possibly 197.
That's what I figured he's walking around.
But I think he'll be heavyweight too.
Is he a pretty good wrestler?
What's that?
Is he a pretty good wrestler?
Yeah, he is.
I think these guys are.
I'm not going to be able to make him as always. It's one thing.
Where's Sam? On her way. Okay. Sam. She helps produce the movie. Oh, where's mine? You are. Wait for me on Monday.
I know. Tiger Warsaw. But
I don't know.
yes, Tiger Warsaw.
My dad's
I haven't heard anything. But yeah, you'll laugh at it. So you'll have to.
Nice.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I am Professor Humphrey. I'm the chair of the communications department, and I had nothing to do with this film, but I'm excited to be here. So let's go around, I think, first, and everybody introduce yourself and what your part in the film was. Let's start down.
All right, so I'm Marcus Hernandez. I go here at Thiel. I'm a senior here, and I helped with what is my role?
PA, right? And
Yeah.
first AC.
First AC, yeah.
Hi everybody, I'm Jay Holloway. I'm like him, I had nothing to do with this film. No, actually I work bodyguard on the set.
You're the associate producer.
And bodyguard. And that's pretty much it.
I'm Tori Haas. I wrote the movie, I was the director of photography, and I edited it. Did I finish it? I produced it. All right.
Tony, I'm, I guess, from Greenville, been here a long time, well, grew up here, directed it, and helped with some of the story elements of the movie.
My name's Haley Leary. I played Claire. I was one of the leads, and I helped produce.
Hey, I'm Davi Crimmins, and I played Dekayla, and she's pretty great, if I do say so myself. And this is a privilege to work on with these folks. Thank you for being here.
And I'm Catherine Capozzi. I'm the composer for the film, so and this is my first time in Greenville, so.
I'm Renee McElhaney, and I had a slight role in the film. I was the hotel clerk.
I'm Shay Lamont. I was the makeup artist while they were filming up here.
Hi, I'm Samantha Debussy. I'm from Greenville, so a lot of you probably know me. I helped, I would say mostly with continuity, probably, as we shot and running around making sure everything went well.
Yes! She does a sick old man voice.
Oh, I did talk in an old man voice.
All right, did you get credited? You better.
I'm Tim Hoffman. I was born in Greenville, lived here for 15 years. I was one of the producers and pretty much just did whatever Tony asked me to do. Or what Mrs. Reams asked me to do.
All right, so show of hands here. How many people would like to make movies someday, and how many people have been involved in making them? 48-hour film, 48-hour film, 48-hour couple people. Okay, very cool. So the start of any film is obviously the script. So I'm going to pick on you. I am also a screenwriter.
Okay.
So what was your process for writing the script? I mean, did you write with a budget in mind? Where did the origin of the story come from?
Right, so we can probably tag team this one, because it started, we wanted to make a really low budget movie. That's how the phone call started between me and Tony, because we've done several projects before in the past. And then you mentioned Greenville, and you have access to so many things here, largely because of your mom.
Yeah.
And you just gave me different elements that I could use in a script that we would have access to, and then you just told me all these stories about Greenville, like different ghost stories, different things about the residents, and then I just started like trying to piece that together into a coherent story. I grew up with Legos, so I liked putting things together, so it was kind of fun to just try to find these connections between all these disparate elements and
kind of, I was more fascinated than anything, because I would send you just blurbs of like, hey, here's something silly, I don't know if this means anything, or here's this location, and I'd send you a picture of something. And one of the other discussions we had where like you said, we've done a couple of projects, and we had some, I don't know if it's issues, but some distribution things that came up, and we're like, we didn't like where it was going. And so another thing we did early on was just did research and analytics on what's popular, what goes to like streaming, what goes to Walmart, what goes to Redbox. And so there was an element of trying to think of like, hey, what does each step of this look like? Not just like, hey, let's come up with this unlimited budget fantastical story, because Tori and I are both low budget indie guys, so it was like, we only have X, so what's the most we could do with X, but still get, something completed and done. And so Tori had a really, as you would know as a screenwriter, and I'm not, but it's very difficult, because it's not just, hey, I'm gonna have a wild imagination and write these crazy things. There's a lot of constraints and limitations and things you have to shoehorn and massage and work in. And we did, I think, 3 or 4 revisions, not that many.
Yeah.
And it was the first one, I was like, oh man, I was really impressed with how well you sort of pieced all that together. So
I learned writing, like it's the first aspect of filmmaking I learned was screenwriting, because I was an undergraduate at Georgia Tech and they didn't have a film program there, but I always wanted to go to Georgia Tech, and that's a whole other story. But because of that, like I wanted to be doing something, so I read like Robert McKee's book about story and screenwriting Bible, just to know the format, and I would just write scripts. So I wrote like a dozen scripts, most of them are terrible, all features, and that's what got me to the point where I could write SpookT.
Well, I've adapted 2 of his scripts, so.
That's right, he did direct the script, the short script I wrote. That won a contest.
Yeah, it did, so that counts for something.
One more thing about the budget that I think is worth mentioning is, because we knew we had a very small budget, so I was very heavily on dialogue scenes, more so than I would normally do if I had all the budget in the world, because you can cover dialogue 2 or 3 shots, and you can make your day and cover 10, 15 pages if you need to. So that was definitely a practical consideration for this script, just having a good bit of dialogue.
Okay. So you did write it then with the intention right off the bat, you knew it was going to be low budget, no imaginary $100 million budget you had?
Definitely, yeah. I always start with that, because we're all filmmakers up here. I've directed my own movies too, and budget's like the biggest thing. It's the biggest hurdle you have to overcome. So definitely always writing that.
But we did have a couple instances where we were like, okay, if we can sort of flex this idea into something bigger, is there a way to do it? And usually Tori would say no.
Yeah, that's more, you were more pushing it, and I was more like, well, let's just save money on this.
Yeah. So there was always that. I would push like, hey, maybe we can do something. And he'd be like, no, and then we compromise, I think, on a lot of it.
Okay.
So.
That's very cool. Did you find yourself having to cut out any scenes because of the budget?
I think so.
Well, there was a morgue scene that we had talked about, but we never really did anything with.
Right, but that wasn't really budget, because like I couldn't come up with a good
That's
scene.
true. I don't think so. Tori was really good about that. That's one thing I maybe, and you would know better than I, but I feel like a lot of times either people don't consider that when they're screenwriting, or people who think about screenwriters don't think about all of the things that you have to think about before you just write. Whereas you write a novel, you could literally invent a universe. But we had a smaller town, Greenville, and so Tim and I knew everything. We grew up here, so we know every nook and cranny of the town. So it was like we knew where things were and how you could move from one to the other. So that was something that Tori did really well considering.
Okay. Cool. So if you don't know, filmmaking is extremely hard work, and independent filmmaking is even harder. Can you, potentially all of you, from the perspective of actors, camera, director, screenwriter, how is it harder as an independent filmmaker?
Oh.
Listing the reasons mentally?
I have something. So I want to ask Marcus this. So Marcus, have you ever been on a big budget film set or indie film set?
Yeah, so recently I went to Pittsburgh for a Netflix film set for Lee Daniels, his newest horror movie coming out.
Okay.
And yeah, it's like crazy, like how fast paced and everything is. So like, everybody is already in position, ready to get something done, and they get it done. You know, as we got to talk more personally, have fun, you know, and like understand the scene, we all got to work together. There's like no words to be said or anything. Everything is shot on the spot. There you go, we're going, you know? So it is more fun to shoot on this like lower budget end of things. It's like, it's really nice to get to know everybody.
Well, I'll say, it's like when you're making a low budget movie, like the level we do, it's like almost an impossible task. Like it's just ridiculous compared to when you look at like a television commercial, it's millions of dollars, and we're like a very small fraction of that. So you're attempting this insanely difficult thing with less people than you need, without the resources you need to really pull it off. So like my philosophy is you should have fun, you know, joke around as much as you can, have a good time. And I do think that energy also comes out on the screen in the movie. Because even though it is a scary movie, I think it has a strong element of fun to it. I hope so. We hope, you know, and live with everyone else.
In the product itself, I've just noticed that like there's more enthusiasm for imagination and experimentation and just creating with bigger budget. You have less hours, you know, like it's long hours, but you still are like stuck in a studio or in one spot. So it's like get what they want and go away. Get what they want, go away every day. And this is more like everybody is encouraging of try it this way. Oh, you want to do that? Go for it. Like we got time, and everybody's really enthusiastic about that. So I enjoy that more because I think that's way more fun. And then you have this totally different product that is now like everybody's powers combined, even better.
Awesome. Captain
To
Planet.
add what she was saying, my first role in any movie, I was amazed at how many different takes it took to get my little scene right. So it was like, okay, I expected to go in at 6 o'clock, say my lines 2 or 3 times and leave. I went in at 6 o'clock and got home at midnight. And it was like, I bet I said my lines 50 times before finally either Tony or Tim said, okay, it's a wrap. It's good. Thank goodness.
And we would also have to, I think it kind of surprised you, because a lot of people, I don't know if they assume, and I'm not sure, but when they see a movie, I don't know if you think when you're watching a movie and you see it go from this wide shot where you see the room, and then you move into a medium shot where you see this, and then you move into their face. I don't know if people think that's 3 different cameras all pointed at the same time when you say go.
Yeah.
Or like 12 cameras on someone and you're like doing one take like a theater play.
Right.
But you should usually shoot with one camera.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that you see is Renee says her line in a wider shot. And and Kristen, who's not here right now, might not even be saying her lines the way she would. She's just helping Renee, and then we move in and Renee says them again. And we move over here and Renee says them again. And I think at one point Renee was like, why are we doing so many?
I think I asked somebody.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how many times do I have to say this?
Yeah.
Like every time the camera moves, the lights all
Yeah,
move, and you're
right.
like, is this some kind of game?
That's the other thing that's a really good point is, I don't know, I'm sure the filmmakers can all just ignore all of this, but for people who don't know, so if you're seeing a scene where Dobby and I would be speaking to each other and the camera's pointed at Dobby and she says her lines, and then it cuts back and I answer Dobby, that's a totally different setup, meaning the lights and everything change. So you do all of, it's called coverage, you do all of her coverage, flip everything, cameras, lights, everything. Sometimes you're not even shooting, hopefully you guys get a chance to see it, because there's scenes where one character is talking to Haley and Kristen's character, and we filmed him in Georgia, and then he's talking to them, and they're on Chambers Ave, and it's like, that doesn't even, you shot it a year apart. So I don't know if how much you guys know about the minutia and the detail, or if you're even interested, but it is a lot, it's a lot of nonsense, so.
It really gave me great respect for actors and actresses. They put in a lot of work and a lot of time.
So going off of that, other actors and actresses in the film, what can you talk about? What was the experience like working on this film, and had you worked together before?
Yes, we have worked together several times before. Tony and I met through a horror film competition. I got on a team. It was kind of like a 48-hour type dynamic, but it was 13 days. because it was the cinema challenge, so they were making everything like for Halloween. And so yeah, I did that just off of a whim, and I hadn't really acted much. It was just kind of one of those things that like, once I found it, like they say, like you actually like get bit by the bug, and you're just like, oh, okay, like this was the passion I needed. And so Tony and I met, and I thought all of his work was super cool. What he did with his kids was super cool because they do their own short films within their family. And I was like, well, maybe like he'll think I'm cool, and we can make some stuff together. So I met him at a like local coffee shop by my house, and I was just like, what about this like babysitter like spoof film about like horror and like stuff like that? So it turned into Playtime's Over, and that did like really well on the circuit. And then I think after that we were all just kind of like, yeah, like we're gonna turn into the new like Happy Madison. We're like always gonna do stuff together until like people catch on. So it was nice because it's like I relate a lot of stuff to sports because I grew up playing sports, and the more you work together, the more you gel, the more comfortable you get with each other. You try new things and everything like that, and like you do create like your own little family because like a lot of people and artists, like that's kind of what it is like we live life to connect. So if we can do that in the indie market, like close to home, like I don't know, I'm always about that. So it was refreshing to be able to do this and like to be trusted with a lead, you know, like that's always really, really nice.
Yeah.
I don't like talking to crowds, so I just feel like, yeah, that sounded good.
It was great. This was 4th, 5th time working with Tony, and yeah, the first time we met was at a coffee shop. He contacted me, had a movie coming up, and I thought it was a prank. I thought he knew some friends of mine, and he was going to film me in a movie, and then they're my friends.
Bust down the wall.
We're gonna put it up at the theater and embarrass me. Like I was like, what is I'm getting punked right now. And that's
Okay.
something I gotta work out in therapy later. It's nothing to do with
But
it.
time
It's
out.
totally me.
Time out. I do think they need a little context. So at the time, I was at U42. She was on the #1 morning show in Atlanta. How many listeners a day? Millions.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
It's a lot.
And there's all these voices on this show, and I'm not gonna talk about the show because whatever. But when she would get on the show, she reminded me of Susan, my sister. She had this sardonic wit, this really razor sharp comedy, just very fun. Oh, she is there. She did. And I said, so I'm in the office, and I'm talking. So this office was all these entertainment guys, and like the guy behind me was a writer for. I don't know if you guys know the band Fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He writes all their songs. So it's like this weird mix of just weird people. And I said, does anyone know Davi at the Burt Show? And Ian was like, I know her. And so then I was like, can you put me in touch with her? So it's like I'm just cold calling the #1 morning show in Atlanta. Like, hey,
is Davi there?
Can someone put me in touch with Davi? And so when we met at the coffee shop, I could tell she thought she was being punked with like film cameras and
My husband's like, you're going to meet a guy at a coffee shop, how'd you meet him? And I'm like, he just called my phone. Just let it go.
So
And
anyway,
it worked
sorry, I
out
didn't mean to
really well.
interrupt, but
No,
that
we've
was-
had a lot of fun, and we made Dead by Midnight and Dead by Midnight, 11 p.m. Central. Love that name, so I gotta say it every time. And Dead by Midnight, Y2Q.
And we can't talk about, so then Davi's a very gifted comedian and writer, so the things that, none of it we'll say today in here, but it's not PG.
Well,
It's PG-13.
some of that was you. He allowed me to, which I'd always been hired as an actor, and it's like, say this thing, and then at a lot of sets, if you say it different or you're like, can I try this? They're like, whose job are you trying to be right now? Because you were hired for this one thing. So that was like him, like Tony fostering this community where it's like, please look at the script. If you have anything, we'll put in alternate lines. We'll try everything, and we just had so much fun together. And now I can't work with anyone.
It's like a weird Stockholm, but in a good way.
But it's not just, okay, clarification, it's not just me. Like all of this, it's like all of us have all worked together so long that it's like, I think we all kind of share this goofiness and this thing. So it's
good vibes.
Yeah.
All around.
So was it a long process for casting, or do you pretty much know when you saw them, or having had these previous relationships, it's them?
I wish Anissa was here. So when Tori wrote it, I don't know if you had anyone in mind.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I brought a couple people in, but was that when Jay got us a room at Georgia State?
We auditioned the role of Rachel. Kristen will be here tomorrow. She's not here today. I didn't know her. I think you knew her. I think Anissa knew her. I didn't know her. And I told her this. When she sent her audition tape in, I was like, oh, it's good. But we got like a bunch of audition tapes. And so that's that's not my strong suit, especially when you're just looking at someone cold reading lines. But then, so we brought everyone in, and Tori was there, Jay was there, Haley read with them, and Lisa was there. And we all just sat, it's a weird thing. It's like this, you sit here near the camera, and it's like, okay, do a scene, right? It's sort of like.
Yeah, you're like in a classroom, you're like, you're in a haunted house.
Yeah.
And she's like, there's a chalkboard.
And we saw a lot of really strong actors. In fact, a lot of actors who you will see in like big movies, like they're all doing big things in Atlanta, as well as Haley
Kia?
Kristen. Yeah, she just won $1 million.
I know.
Anyway.
Killing. You're just kind of like,
yeah, she's great. But then Kristen came in, and I immediately texted Greg Bishop, and I was like, oh, I see what you mean. Because I always ask him about casting, because I think that's his superpower. Some people have a superpower when it comes to this, like they're really good at casting, or they're really good at blocking, or they're really good at set. I don't have any of those. So I would ask Greg, who's really good at casting, and I'm like, how do you know when you're casting? And he's like, because Greg cast, he discovered Lucas Till, who's MacGyver, the new MacGyver. He discovered Jamie Alexander, who's in the Thor movies. He's really good at like that. And he just said, you'll know, right? And that was the first time, other than of course you guys, who I was like, I sort of went after you all rather than audition. And
we were like, dude, we have boyfriends.
So, yeah, great. Also, point of note, Haley is basically our adopted child. Our family is pretty much adopted.
Yeah,
her.
I don't talk to my dad, I have Tony.
Yeah, Glenn and I pretty much foster Haley. We make sure she's good.
Yeah, 100%.
It's our foster child.
Yeah.
So, but when Kristen came in the room, it was a weird, and I don't know, did you kind of see that? Or
Yeah, when she did her audition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it felt like we all were like, oh, that's Rachel. And
it was her in-person energy.
Yeah, because she didn't have it on the tape.
Yeah.
But, when she came in, and
I think that attests to, like, as much as I love self-tapes as an actor, as far as, like, flexibility, being able to kind of do it when I need to and everything like that. But that speaks to what it really feels like to be in the room, because like that might be like, oh, we like your look enough to get you a call back, and then your energy in the room sells it. So like when the pandemic hit, and obviously like things were already starting to transition to self-tapes, which was understandable because of how technology.
Sorry, can you explain what self-tapes?
Okay, so self-tapes, like if you get something, you tape it yourself at your house, and so there's normally a deadline you have to have it in by. You have to get a reader.
Do they give you sides from
So
the movie?
yeah, they give you, depending on if it's a commercial, they'll give you scenarios to act out, expressions to do. If there's a pivotal moment for your character, they want to see that depth of emotion. They don't want to say like, hey, could you get that? Like they want to see the rawness of your character, so they'll send you the nitty gritty of your sides to turn that in, and those can be like, someone can do 60 takes. And that gets them the part, but then on the day, can you rely on that to not take 60 takes on the day? So I think that's why being in a room is important, especially for bigger stuff and everything like that, because like with independent films, like they were saying, you do have that flexibility with time and collaboration and stuff like that, but if you're on a Marvel set and you're just like, hey, can I get 10 takes? They're like, that's cute, let's recast. So I think it's whether or not the casting has the eye for like, yeah, I feel confident that this wasn't on the 60th try, you know what I mean? And callbacks are important because those can be virtual. So at least that will be live. You don't get the same energy in the room, but you're getting the same time. So.
And the other thing that's missing from that was when you're just doing a self-tape, you're just looking at the cameras. You're just reading to the cameras. But
or like you have a reader.
Right, but it's different than when you get them in the room, and Kristen and you can see the chemistry and the way that works. And it's not just chemistry like, oh, they look like they're in love.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that. There's just a chemistry of the way they look at each other, talk to each other, interact
well, they
with
work
each
well
other.
together.
Yeah, and that's a whole big part of casting that just comes from, you know, you just trial and error. There's a lot of.
But then there's also a good part, because I know some of the casting for my film, I got recommended for one of the actresses who actually auditioned for SpookT, and I cast her in one of my films. So it does work out. So some of those actors that you don't use, you can always recommend them to other projects if they're willing to do it. I got lucky, so.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, you're not cast because you're a bad actor. You're just not cast because you're not right for the role.
Or even not right for, sometimes, and this wasn't the case here, but sometimes that person, that role, they might be perfect in that role, but they just don't fit the scene of the other characters. And so there's a whole dynamic to it. So you'll see, you'll read about like when they were casting Star Wars and they would put like Mark Hamill with, you know, this woman, and then Mark Hamill with Carrie Fisher, and then, you know, then Carrie Fisher with theirs. It's like this whole like.
They would do, they're called chemistry reads to just see how people mesh on camera, and like, you could be down to the finish line, and it's you and two other people, and you guys all do chemistry reads, and it's based off of who they believe more between you guys.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about production value. You've already established that this was a pretty low budget film. So how did you go about trying to get every cent up on the screen, and how might that tie into shooting in a town like Greenville?
I think you should probably answer that.
I think
your mom should answer that.
In all honesty, that's probably the biggest. Like we don't have money, so the currency that we would have is connections and favors. And Mom was able to say, and I would say that to anybody, like if you're trying to make a film and it's like, you know, we don't have money, but we have access to, you know, the Waugh House. We can film it. And so I get asked that all the time. God, the set deck in the Waugh House looks incredible. We didn't do anything. We hung a picture up. Like it was there.
We just used it.
Yeah, like we just pointed the camera at that and pointed the camera at that. So that's a lot of it.
Locations and producers, like whether or not you have, because if someone knows someone, like with one of our friends had a film where the last minute the location dropped out, and they were just like, this is going to be super expensive. Someone called in a favor, and they were able to shoot in an actual bar, and it's just all about whether or not you're a good person, I feel like. if you're nice to people.
Right. Yeah, because there'll be times when people call me for favors, I'm like, I don't know. But there's another interesting thing that if you see the movie, the exteriors of this haunted house that we used is here in town, but the interiors were all filmed in Georgia, and because we didn't have money, so it was like, well, we can't go up there and film for 30 days. It's just too expensive. So we'll go up there and we'll do every piece of the thing that we need, and then we filmed the interiors all on a set that basically, the last film we had worked on, they found this house, and it was a woman who had just died, and the guy was like, well, we're not using it. You can use it for whatever you want. And the important things about that you really need to think about is, does it have power, so you're not worrying about generators?
They don't worry about heat.
There was no heat. But do you worry about running water? Because otherwise it's like, where's people go to the bathroom? Like these stupid things that you don't, like everyone thinks filmmaking is like, I just get a big check and there we go, put it on the screen. But there's all these things like, where are people gonna go to the bathroom? Like that's a crucial thing. When you talk about community and people having fun, that's important, but I would say just as important as that is, probably the most important thing to filmmaking is, are the cast and crew fed, right? Or they have stuff to eat, which you don't think about at your job. Like most people probably don't go to their job and be like, hey man, when's my lunch coming, right? But that's a film thing, like you have to.
This place needs better snacks.
It's been second meal, I'm out.
But that's the thing for film, because it's not like, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't pay anyone $1 million to show up. We didn't have $1 million. I would've, but it's like, hey, we got coffee, we got snacks, right?
Yeah, and goldfish crackers.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah,
It's
so
like
it's
real gold.
Yeah, so all these little pieces, when you say production value, no one really thinks about, like, you know, good food on a set adds a lot, because then you have actors who are like, hey guys, we got this really tough scene coming up, we gotta figure this out. And if they're grumpy and tired, and there was a couple nights where Tori would say, it would get to be like 2 a.m. and Tori would say, do you want this shot to look good?
Yeah. He's like, I don't know if you want it to look good.
And I was like, yeah, and he's like, we're not doing that tonight then. You know, so then it's like, time out, let's come back, right? So I would say you gotta have someone like my mom. So I'm sure she would love to do this for anyone in the room if you guys need whatever you need. But
Just
she,
round of applause for Mary.
It would help if you have places like the Majestic. You have places like
Dude, the hot
Sheetz.
dogs.
Oh my gosh, yes. All of those really fed into, to use that term.
Literally.
And strawberry jam, right, Tori?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good homemade strawberry.
so if you want any of that stuff, let her know. But that's an important point, and I will say this, and I'm not just saying this because you guys are all here, and I'm assuming everyone here knows about Greenville, but the community was so incredibly open and welcoming. And if you try to do this where we are, it's impossible. You will get shut down. You will get people will just come out and they'll just get on their riding mower and they'll decide to cut their grass at 6 a.m. because they don't want you doing stuff, right? Or they don't want you to feel, they want to figure out like, how can I get money? Because they figure that we're shooting Thor 7 or whatever, you know, and we're not.
Jokes on them, I'm soundproofing my basement.
Yeah, but that's the thing in Atlanta, that in Greenville, we never had a single issue with, you know, locations, with people, with finding things next to them. But it's just, you have no idea what a small community like Greenville means to an indie film versus Atlanta.
And Atlanta never used to be like that when you get locations.
You can't do it now.
Yeah, I think everybody's just trying to get a penny. I mean, I don't want to sound depressing or anything, but it is. It's like shooting up here versus shooting in Atlanta it's a lot better. If I had the budget, I would shoot up here, but.
I tried to rent, so we were doing a different project, but I needed to rent this house, and it was a house that could have looked like it was in Greenville. A little nicer than like your average house, maybe like nicer than our house, but not like super, you wouldn't be like, oh my gosh. So I was like, hey, I need this house for 4 hours. I would like to just shoot. They had like this little interesting driveway outside and up to the door. And they said that'll be $8,500.
Yeah.
And I said, no. And they said,
do I get to live here for 3
right.
months?
And they said, well, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger was just filming here last week. And I was like, yeah, but not everyone that comes to film, they think that everyone that shows up is going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger wanting to rent your house for a Humvee commercial or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's I would say production value. You cannot beat finding what you have and finding my mom if you need something.
That's our Greenville plug.
Noted. So let's discuss your goals with the film a little bit. Are you, and this is a broad and specific question, are you a filmmaker that tries to make something simply to entertain? Do you want to tell a deeper message, social commentary, allegory, any of those things? Or are you just looking to make something and then go on to the next project?
Largely entertain. I do think every movie should have a theme and like a point to it, something beyond that. And hopefully, if you do see SpookT, you'll see some of that in this. Because I was trying to comment on, excuse me, just like polarization. Because we have like 2 characters in it that believe in different kind. Like one believes in the supernatural, one debunks the supernatural. I just wanted to comment on because I think there's so much polarization in the country and people really aren't talking to each other. And in the movie, they don't talk to each other, and that's why things don't go well for them, ultimately. But like 90% entertainment.
Yeah, I was just talking to Tim. So Tim does a lot of advocacy, and that's sort of his mission, and that's what he does, and it's incredible. And I don't advocate for much, like publicly, just because, I mean, not just because, but I'm just an old white dude, and it's like, poor me, right? I don't have a lot of things that I can, but I would get behind things if I could. And the thing is like stepping into authenticity. Tim, correct me if I'm jumping out over my skis. But stepping into authenticity, so it's like, I can't jump out here and I can't talk about, I can, in some instances, talk about like gender issues or social equality or racial equality, things like that. So all we can do is get the group of people that we love working with, make something, have fun doing it, and maybe, you know, well, we're not great, but I would love to do that. It's just, that's a bigger, broader question, and I think what we do to do the advocacy part, it takes a lot more than what we can do right at this point. So that's something we've been really talking about.
But what you know is Greenville, right? And so like I think the film captured that, like the the small town stories that come out of small town. You know that well, right? We know that. Corey captured it well in screenwriting. So I think that that was the biggest piece. It's mostly advocating for Greenville and the town that it was. I think you captured that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily advocating for Greenville.
I'd say entertainment is value in of itself too, though. Like a lot of artists lose sight of that. They want to be like something more, something about this message. Then they make something that people don't want to see. And I think like entertainment is what most people are looking for. You know, it's what I'm looking for when I watch a movie. I don't really care about a message. Like I would never watch a movie because of the message. And I'm the guy who just said I do like to include a message. But,
it's a great plug for what.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think what I like about horror as a genre in and of itself, like I do truly, I'm on the other side of like, I do abstract art and poetry. Like I do really like getting deep and making people think about the bigger picture of whatever story I'm trying to tell. But what I do enjoy about horror is the ability to take a break from that and to be able to just like make something fun or make something scary or weird, and people are like, why? And I was just like, I don't know, my brain thought about it. And like that's acceptable. Like they're just like, oh okay, yeah, this is the genre for you. So like for me, like as much as there is a message in Spooked, what I liked about it was like the ability to make just like spontaneous new decisions and stuff like that, because of you're telling a story as a whole, but there's, you know, many different routes to get there.
And that is, I guess, one thing I would say in terms of, and I don't know, we don't plan, there was never a plan or a thought of like, hey, we should have, so there's 2 female leads, which you don't see a lot of in a movie, because usually, and there's the Bechdel test.
Oh, yeah.
So, my daughter Evan was like, hey, you guys passed the Bechdel test? And I was like, what's that? You know what it is? Okay. Yeah, I was like, what? So, but I just love Night of the Comet, which was an 80s film that did that kind of thing. And it's like, if you just make stuff and you get people that you enjoy working with, I think a lot of that comes out. Like, we met Catherine through this process as the composer, and we had 2 female leads. We got Shay and Samantha and Marcus and like all this group of like, I don't know that if we were like, if we all went to school together, we might not be like, hey, let's form a club. You know what I mean? Like, we're all different people, but we all have different thoughts and views, and I think everyone sort of brings that. And so in that, I think you can make messaging out of that, because it's not just one person's idea. So I think it is an open thing where like we're getting ideas and we're getting people involved that, all different walks of life and interests. And so maybe that's something in of itself, as well as let's do it to make something maybe entertaining.
And speaking of the composer, what was your process for actually writing the score? Did you watch it first and have some ideas? Were you directed by them? Hey, I have this melody in mind, or how did you go about that?
Well, a few things. First of all, it's the first time that I was working with Tony, and I was introduced through Melissa, through through previous movie that I did. But the process was I spoke with Tony about the movie, asked a lot of questions about like, where the story, where it was, and Tony was, telling me it takes place in Greenville, and it's, Amish country is around here, and so then I went about, based on his story and based on discussing things with him, like I went about researching, what that meant. I listened to a ton of music, both like from, Amish traditionals, and then just music that was made in this area to see if I could get a vibe. And then the first thing I did was, based on our initial conversation, was make music based on our conversation and based on what he told me about the story. That was before I saw anything. And I just said, I sent him this first take, and I had taken a very old Amish lullaby, some German, and I destroyed it. And then I added other things to it, and I said, this kind of, what about this? And I think, obviously I didn't see what he had done, from a film perspective first, and he's like, oh, this could possibly, this definitely could, this idea could possibly work in some things. And then I saw the very rough cut, and then from there, I think there was a scene that you wanted me to score first, which was a very high tension, very important scene. And for me, since I was just like, scoring out of context is, a little bit weird, because, you're trying to get into the whole story and the vibe of the film and the emotional content. And so I scored it, and Tony was like, yeah, okay. I mean, whatever Tony, I always, every day, I think we were communicating pretty regularly. When I did a cue, I'd send it to him and be like, you know, what do you think? Because it's not up to me. It's, you know, I'm trying to contribute to the story in a way that's like, you know, when people like do photo bombs, you know, somebody's always behind. I feel like I'm that. A composer, it's like, I'm in every scene, you know, almost. You know, so I want to make sure that, you know, what I'm doing is getting whatever emotional impact you want to get, or if it's scary, or if it's, you know, tension, or if it's sad, whatever it is. It's like, that's my job to do it, but also do it in a way that's not traditional. I think originally Tony had given me some samples of like some scores that he liked and some composers that he liked, and Michael Abels was one of them, and I love Michael Abels' work, and I was like, that's a big orchestra. So part of my other job was to like listen to, you know, the things that he was referencing, and then digest it through my brain and do something that was original, not with anything I do stuff that's, you know, unique to me, and that's the film that you make is unique to you, your story. So my idea is not to be like, oh, here's your John Williams score, hope you like it. So a lot of the sounds that I used were things that you can't recreate. It's not a sample library, I did it, you know, and it's very subtle. I mean, unless you're a musician, you really want to know what it is, I can tell you some secrets, but I'd rather not. So anyway, that was kind of, you know, the process.
Cool. So I've got a few more questions, and then I'll open it up to the audience here. So the film is complete. What's the goal now? Film festivals, distribution, anything in place, anything happening?
Column A, column B.
Well, so when Tori and I started the whole process, we tried to think through everything, and my goal was never film festivals, because this, like we sort of said at the beginning, like this isn't really a film festival type of film, so that wasn't like our big goal. Sure, film festivals are great, but it was, like I said, we did the analytics, and let's figure out to get to the distribution. So, you know, then Vanessa came on board, and I really wish she was here, sort of in the middle, and that was a whole other story. So Vanessa runs this film festival in Atlanta called the Renegade Film Festival, which is how we met Catherine. It's just sort of this melting pot of Atlanta filmmakers, and then filmmakers from all over the world come to this thing, and you just get this vibe of this.
I will say as a chick it was cool because it originally started as Women in Horror, so it was really nice to have that outlet, and then it became really cool because she was the type of person that's always been like, let's make it more inclusive. So then it turned into Renegades, and it really, I mean, it's always been great, but now like your net got bigger, you know.
Way bigger. So so I didn't know Vanessa as well as probably even, I don't know how well you knew Vanessa.
I done like, I only knew her very like limitedly, but you know.
She's a huge fan of yours, by the way.
I talked to her.
Huge fan.
Yeah.
So I was a little timid, and I was like, I really need some help with two things. And midway through, so I was like, I'm just gonna message Vanessa, and I was like, hey, I need help with this one thing. And she's like, can I call you? And I was like, oh boy, I'm not a big phone guy, and I'm awkward. And so she calls, and we just sort of hit it off in terms of like same ideas and stuff. And I was like, oh my god. So then we started, I don't even know where our chat group, we started this nonsense chat group, me, Tim, and Vanessa, and it's complete insanity, but we've accomplished all this stuff through it. And long story short, brought Vanessa in, and Vanessa knows everybody in the industry. Like literally, she can pick up a phone and call anybody. And so, and she'll make it seem like, oh yeah, I know, you name it. I know such and such, whatever, you want me to call them? No, but maybe that's good to know, but so I needed this specific thing. She's like, let me help. So she got more and more involved, and as she got more and more involved, she was like, you need to take this to Fright Fest, which is a big film festival. And I was like, we're not, it's not a film festival film, da-da-da. So we took it, so I just wrote it, this is inside baseball, because I get asked all the time from filmmakers, how did you get into Fright Fest? And I've never told any filmmakers how I got into Fright Fest. Yeah, you read another magic?
Well, wasn't Playtime's Over?
Here's the magic. We did this film Playtime's Over that you talk about, and it played in Glasgow, over in Scotland, and Mom and I flew over there. And it's a theater, so the Glasgow Theater is like a legendary theater, and it seats about 600 people. Yeah, and so we go over there and we get there and we meet with, there's 5 guys from Fright Fest, and we met with them, and we walked in, I was like, hey, I'm Tony, and they're like, they were really warm and welcoming. Fright Fest is one of the biggest genre film festivals in the world. And so he's like, okay, I want to tell you how your screening's gonna go. We're gonna play your movie before this other movie, and then, Mom's like, oh, this is fantastic, this is great. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna walk you down, I'm gonna introduce the film. We had no idea how many people were there, so we're just up in this small room. And he says, he pulls me aside, he's like, are you ready? And I was like, sure, I guess. And he's like, no, are you ready? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, here's the thing. They're either gonna love your film or they're gonna effing hate your film. There's no in between. He said, the film that's clearing out now, they were throwing stuff at the director.
This is Scotland, baby.
And I was like, great, right?
Get out, boo.
And Mom looks at me and she didn't hear any of this. She's like, I'm so excited. And I was like, great. So we get down, and I didn't know they opened these doors. You remember, Mom? They opened these wing doors, and it was this cavernous theater, like something you'd see in some stupid Mission Impossible movie. Walk us all the way to the front.
So it was gorgeous?
Unbelievable. Mom, tell me if I'm embellishing too much, but I introduced the film, and I'm like sweating, and I'm like, oh my God. And then Mom's like, here we go, and I'm thinking, we need to really go. And so, the thing about international film festivals is the sense of humor is different, the timing is different. Jokes you have here that would work, like Naked Gun here, will not work necessarily in Scotland, because the timing doesn't work. Nothing works the same. So I'm like, oh boy. So the thing goes up, and it's this massive screen, right? And I'm like, we didn't DCP check it, we didn't do anything. I don't even know if it's gonna work. So I'm like, this is where I'm like, oh, this is embarrassing.
My mom's here.
So they play the film, and like within 20 seconds, I hear a chuckle, and I'm like, oh, it could be a nervous chuckle, could be some guy, like I like that. Then it started building a little bit, and by the end, it was like this. It was a big applause. Yeah. I mean, it really was like a big thing, and it was like, I say that to say that never happens. Like, it's not like I go everywhere and people are like, oh man, we love what you do. It's not a thing. So we leave, and I heard him say, the guy that told me this is either gonna work or they're gonna effing hate you. And he told Alan, who runs Fright Fest, he's like, I told you this, what'd he say? I told you this was the best film here, the best something here. And Alan turned to me and he said, I don't know this guy. He's a judge on the Cannes Film Festival. He runs Fright Fest. Wonderful guy. And he says to me, are you working on a feature? And I said, yes. And I was not.
You're always working on something.
Always. And I was dreading, like, tell me about it. Like, I was like, I had nothing.
Send me your pitch.
Yeah, I had nothing.
It's about a man.
Yeah.
Dealing with a conflict.
Yeah.
He starts as a boy.
And he says, well, bring it to me first. And I was like, cool. And that was 4 or 5 years ago.
I'm not gonna lie, I was very, just so happy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of sat on that, and you know how you get sort of excited, like sometimes you'll get like a really good meal and you think about it later, like, oh my God, that was delicious, right? So I thought about that one sentence for like 4 years. And so when Vanessa was like, you need to send it to Fright Fest, and I was like, oh. So I wrote this email, and it was terrible. Because I couldn't figure out, like, what do you say? Like, hey buddy.
You wanna check out my film, I
Yeah,
guess?
hey, look what we did. So, Vanessa swooped in, and Vanessa's an incredible screenwriter too. So she massaged it and shaped it. And she says, writes this beautiful thing. And I attached a picture of me and Mom in Glasgow with these stupid masks with Alan and the guys at Fright Fest. And a day later, he's like, your film's terrific, we want it for Fright Fest. And so, the trick to getting into a film festival, it's not always like submit your film, because Sundance gets like 40,000 films, so it's not like you're never getting into Sundance probably. If you do, congratulations, that's incredible. It's more about...
Not to be negative.
The industry's incredibly negative. Everything is always one step forward, 800 steps back. It's always that process. But I will say, if you can make connections, make things, so when you get to distribution, it then turns into connections that you made along the way? What is your password? What is Tori's password? What's Jay's password? How do we know Catherine? Oh, I heard about Catherine, and she did this incredible movie that I saw like 5 times on the circuit. The music was just next level. What Metal Girls Do.
Yeah.
And so that's how it is. Long. I know. I'm sorry. I went real long on this stupid story. But
Because you could have just have said, you take your mother.
yeah. And it was a great trip. But the point is it all is like your failure builds on your failure, builds on your failure, makes a success. Your connection makes a connection, makes a connection. This person over here you've never met knows you through these 3 things. And that's how everything. And so now we've got a sales rep who's out here shopping it for distribution. So the goal, I would say, personally, my goal would be, and I don't know if anyone knows Shudder. Marcus, do you know about Shudder?
Yeah.
Okay. So Shudder would be like a perfect outlet for distribution. It's like a horror streaming service. It's I think AMC owns it. That would be great. Blu-rays, if anyone buys those, would be great. But I don't know what like I'm older, so it's like I don't know how you watch movies. Like I don't want you.
TV or video.
Yeah, maybe not on your phone. I don't know if you enjoy it. But anyway, distribution is how do you get there? It's a long, painful, brutal until you know someone. So I don't know anything.
You're basically asking people to like you, and they're like, we'll think about it. And then someone's like, we'll give you a chance, I guess. This is.
We'll give you a chance, but we'll take all your money.
Yeah, this is called hazing. And you're just like, oh, okay, got it.
What do you think, Mike?
About distribution. No, I mean, that's a good answer. The only thing I disagree with is I think distribution's actually pretty easy, but getting a good deal where you actually make money on your investment in the movie is almost impossible.
Yeah, it's whether or not you're gonna get a good deal. Like, I could be like, yeah, I'll distribute it and then throw it in the trash. Like,
Well, yeah. Our last movie was in every Walmart, every Target in the country. I saw it everywhere.
How many of you all have seen Dead by Midnight Y2K?
Okay, but here's the thing, and it's sold out in all our Walmarts. And I'm like, and how big was your check?
I didn't get anything for Dead by Midnight.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
That's why we're on Shark, so
Well, we all got a good job, everyone.
So like, and I hate to be that guy because I hate when you go somewhere and they're like, hey, I'm real excited about doing this thing. Can you tell me how to do it? And you're like, you can't. It sucks. It's terrible. But maybe change your expectations, right? So like, if your expectation is to make the next Blair Witch or the next Get Out or the next whatever horror thing or whatever movie or whatever venture enterprise, maybe rethink it. Maybe do it differently. Maybe say, I'm not going to attack this like Blair Witch, or I'm not going to try to be the next Steven Spielberg, but maybe I can figure out a way to curve this way and still make money.
Or you can look at it this way, it's like throwing your money in a black hole.
It could be. And that's, I will say this, I've never lost a dime on a movie. Have you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm glad it turned out better. I
You're really confident about it.
I really
It's like, I almost lost my marriage. Like, are you kidding? I've lost a lot doing movies.
Yeah, but I haven't. I haven't gone into big debt.
Have you put your own money into it?
Mm-hmm.
So all your short films, you made all your money back.
Okay, yes.
Playtime's over.
Yes. And I can tell you how to do that.
Also, our short film, right?
Yeah. No. Okay. So the way. Okay, for short films, what you can do is you can get. There's these other services out there, and they'll pay you. Screenbox pays me $250 when they show Playtime's over.
Oh, that's right. It is on Screenbox. Yeah.
What?
Is that one time or just?
Since when?
Twice. Vancouver Horror Show took it on the road, and I'm supposed to get money every time it screens in a theater. You know, there are ways to make it, but it's not going to be. No one has cut me a check that's been like, here's 30 grand. Buy that car you've been waiting on.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can figure out ways. Now to do that, and I always say this, like I think it's easier to make your money back on a $30,000 movie than it is to make your money back on a $50,000 movie, right? And it's not just the fact that it's cheaper. It's just that there's so many other outlets that you can get to and get these small pieces versus once you start getting more money and people start wanting more ROI on it, more things like this. Just like it might be harder to make money back on a $5,000 short because that's an expensive short when there's not as many outlets. But if you made a $5,000 feature, you can make your money back, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You know, but there are ways. It's just you're not going to get someone. Now there are people I know that have been like, yeah, man, I made $2 million overseas. Sure,
I think they're lying.
probably lying, but also it is possible. But it's a business. I would say that it's the film business. So do the films for fun. Do get around the group that you love.
Invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Don't go into debt over a movie. Definitely, because of that black hole thing Jay said.
it can't be true. And I know people, there's one guy, just to ruin everyone's day, there was a guy on this film festival circuit who made this short film. It was a $125,000 budget, it was a 7-minute short film.
Oh my gosh.
And he spent $65,000 on this one shot. Wow. And we were on this panel. And it was at a time when we had Playtime's Over. Playtime's Over cost us $600 to make. And this dude, and this dude was like, okay, so everyone's like, how did you spend $65,000 on the shot? And he said, I spent 2 months doing this shot, doing all this stuff, did all this equipment, all this, shot the shot, and we're like, okay, cool, which scene is it in the short? He's like, it didn't make it in the short. So, there's a lot of it that's like, yeah, you could spend that money on it. Yeah, and that's, I will say this, another quick thing is, I guess if this was sports, right, and you were like, Tim's really fast, so if anyone wants to race Tim afterwards, it's super fast. But if you're fast, right? And you can compete against anyone else who's fast. But when you get a film done, your film might cost you $10,000 for the budget, but you're competing against $60 million budget films, and everyone who sees it's gonna go like, well, why is theirs good, looks good, and yours looks not good? You know what I mean? So it's like this, you're competing with people way outside of your weight class. So there's all these things stacked against you. All that to say, find a group of people that you love making stuff with and make stuff.
Or you do this, find someone famous and get them to review your film, like Stephen King did with The Evil Dead.
Yeah, and every big movie has a story like that, where it's like they caught it lightning in a bottle. They figured this thing out. Chris Rock made fun of Blair Witch Project, and the next thing you know, Blair Witch Project is blowing up everywhere, and there's all kinds of things. So
shoot your shot. Like you sent that email.
Yeah.
No such thing as bad press.
Yeah, take a chance. Like, I didn't think we'd get in Fright Fest.
Yeah.
So do it. Go for it.
Like Haley's shirt said, what is it? Create your own sunshine.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, I hope I don't sound like negative and miserable about it, because we had a great time.
Yeah.
We had fun.
Very cool. So it is now 2 o'clock. The screening will be at 2:30. You mind taking 10 or 15 minutes for audience questions, and we have time to move over there? Okay, questions.
Oh, God.
Sorry, again first.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
So this is more like for the screenwriter. Like with like horror movies, do you like do you kind of like go off like the stereotypical horror movies? Would you say?
I mean, with this movie, I was trying to do something different. Like, there's a lot of one thing I want to do is play with different horror tropes, like, you know, a killer doll, a crazy person too obsessed with his dead wife, and then try to subvert it in some way. Because I think you have to realize kind of like the importance of tropes that most people are looking for, but they're looking for something different too. So that's what I was trying to do with it, for sure.
But the stereotypical horror movies, sometimes
Oh yeah,
Sometimes they're classics for a reason.
Yeah. I still love the Scream franchise, but are they good?
The first one is.
That is true. The rest?
Yeah, I Scream 1, 2, and 3. I'm here for. Well, 3, the haircut would be interesting.
You don't like 4?
Christina.
Also kind of based on screenwriting and stuff. This is something we discussed in our screenwriting class. I know Greenville is notorious for like our haunted stories, kind of our own little spooky life. Were you able to take any of the like knowledge of what's gone on here and put that, or at least use that as inspiration?
Yeah, because Tony, he sent me like all these newspaper articles and headlines and stuff that happened. I mean, it was all filtered, not having firsthand experience here, everything was filtered through what Tony sent me.
Yeah.
And then I relied on him when I wrote a draft to make sure it was like authentic to Greenville.
Well, yeah, because there was a line here that said Greenville was settled by the Dutch, and like
Yeah.
so it's like going into the history and everything made its way in.
And there's a lot of things that I'm sure. Are you from Greenville? Or?
No, but I just know, especially on campus, I know a good chunk of all the hauntings,
Okay.
all the stories, because this campus has a lot of them.
Yeah, we filmed in Shenango Valley Cemetery. There's some stuff over there. I do think that there's a lot of, like, we would draw on it, but it's always that thing, like you said, to not like you said, subvert things. So you want to take something that happened for real and flip it a little bit, because you kind of want to be respectful and not be like, I'm just going to steal this person's story, or I'm not going to steal this thing and make it. So there's nothing. I wouldn't say that anything is like word for word exact, like we deal with the lady with the lantern, that whole mythology, and we kind of tweak it a little bit. So there's all kinds of things.
Good bit, I would say. Like, there's nothing in it, so lower your expectations right now, that's like exactly a ghost story from Greenville.
I was
Like
just wondering if
everything.
it was like any of that was able to be used for like inspiration or not.
Yeah, for sure. Like the very broad strokes of it, and then I kind of went in and altered it. So I'm a little nervous about people in Greenville seeing it.
You get a cease and desist or two.
Yeah.
Right. You can beat up Tori after this.
That's my bodyguard, that's what I do.
I don't think anyone cares that much, I think.
Well, here's what's gonna happen. This is one thing I think will be funny is, I grew up here, so I know you're gonna see some scenes and you're like, there's no way this person walked from here on Chambers to here on the West Main Hill in the same shot, right? But no one outside of Greenville knows that.
Yeah.
You don't
No,
need
but looks right.
You don't need to tell us. You don't need to, like, I got it. I know it was an editing.
Is she
I know.
lost?
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah, you're not gonna, we go from the football field over to Arby's in the same shot. So I get it, it's not gonna be exactly like, you know, oh my God.
Custom
they nailed
corner
it.
is not that way.
Yeah. She goes from the library to Hurlburt's to the custom corner. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. You go to custom corner first, then you go to, but no, she takes the tracks behind where Kex used to be, and
I got a lot on my mind. I was just walking the town.
yeah, so when you watch it, you just understand that we know we took some liberties with geography, so.
Such a nice day.
You brought up a few times the whole Happy Madison, like you guys are really putting on. Do you ever think of switching up genres or like switching up to a
Yeah,
comedy
we've actually
or a-
talked to one of our actors who's we work with frequently. He's not here right now, but we're going to do a mental health type short. I mean, it is kind of a creature feature. Like it has a creature.
So it's horror.
It has a creature in it, but it's not like they're not like dun dun dun, like you know what I mean. But yeah, I've been in talks with Tony about doing something a little more narrative as far as like serious and what.
I know, it's funny, cause it's like, you guys
It's
grow,
hard.
grow up, Tony.
I know. I'm like, let's tell a story other people can relate to. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, we've got the materials. Do we build it? So that's the kind of question. And I think it would be a shift for sure. Lighting's different, pace is different, everything like that. So that might take a little bit of extra time, but I would so be game to do something outside of horror.
I don't, Susan, you're gonna think I'm crazy when I say this, but horror's not my favorite genre of film.
No,
It's
but
just
it is
not.
it is what we grew up on.
It is, my dad, that was his big thing. I like comedy, I like action, I would prefer that. Problem with comedy is no one in the real world watches comedy anymore, like you can't make
It's gotta be very good.
and it's gotta be like, there's only one Hamilton,
Yeah.
no one makes Blazing Saddles anymore, no one makes Naked Gun anymore, like they don't do that, I don't know why, but they don't. So horror is about the only way that we know of that we could ever do something that might attract people who aren't, us.
Yeah, well, as far as like funding and stuff like that, what people don't realize is horror is the most profitable genre in film, just because of what you can do with smaller budgets and certain things that are acceptable because it's the horror realm and not.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Exorcist comes out in 2 weeks, the new Exorcist, right?
I didn't even know. Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if it's good. Tim's friend's daughter is the star of it, and yeah, shout out Tim's friend's daughter. But it's going to make $1 gazillion, and you may or may not even care that it's coming out. It's the 12th Exorcist or whatever. Like, it's going to make $1 gazillion, and they probably don't even need to market it. So.
And I
What's
think
the name?
there's a lot of like silliness and a lot of horror too. So it's like even though it's a horror movie, you can add some drama, you can add some comedy into it. That's why we have the most fun with it. So I'm like, it's my favorite so far.
Yeah.
And we did make a children's film that we have not finished yet because I am a child.
Someday.
Child, we're gonna edit that thing, we're gonna finish that thing, but I've seen this guy do a lot of different things, so.
We did a comedy web series.
We did a comedy.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, one other quick thing when you were talking about just the doing the different things. Like we do horror and people expect the horror, right? Just because you do, the horror might be the gateway into the thing, or the suspense or the whatever. You guys might not know this, but in terms of like if you want to go to a film festival, there's 50,000 film festivals, right? And 35,000 of them are just not good.
Yeah.
The only, if outside of Sundance and TIFF, and even if you go to like TIFF, their midnight stuff is what really breaks out. It's always the horror genre festival. So if you want to get people to see your movie,
Just as far as a networking route.
yeah, you have to. So
Yeah.
that's where you have to like. That's where you would have to go.
People are a lot more welcoming too in
Yeah,
horror.
that's so. I've had this comment. I haven't even told you guys this yet, but like, I love when people do this. They're like, "Wow, it's really good acting in your film," and I'm like, was the bar that low? Like,
Yeah, you're just kind of like, isn't that, it's a movie.
Yeah,
Like,
like-
it's a.
I got that, and I got, wow, it really feels like a movie. And I was like, well, good. You know, I was thinking like a Velveeta.
You're just sitting there looking at him like, am I having a stroke? Like, I don't, yeah, that's what we made.
So you can make things that are not, like, there's nothing, like SpookT isn't super silly, but it's fun, right? But you
Yeah.
can still bring like, he brought a lot of drama, there's tension, so hopefully that translates, and you can maybe break out of that with like, if I have my way, my next project would be a musical. That's what I'm working on.
It's called Tony Reeves Lives in the Sun.
Oh, wait, no, I am in that.
I mean, everyone's
I
gonna be
forgot.
in that. That would be my thing.
Oh, musical.
Tony, remember we met on you had that idea about the anthology, the comedy.
Oh, wait, hold on. Should we get?
If you had a bigger budget, what impact would that have had on your film? Would it have changed much?
It wouldn't have, I don't think it would have changed the story too much. What it would have changed is we would have done bigger stunts. Tori and I met on a film 10 or 12 years ago. Yeah, 2011. And that film had a budget, and so I remember I was helping. It was the first time I was on a set where they were like, okay, we're gonna light this girl on fire and throw her up in the rafters, right? And I was like, wait, what? You know, and so it's like those kind of things, like I didn't even know that was possible. Like, and the dude that did it, no, the super, yeah, fire guy. But anyway, they were like, and I'm like, can you do that? Like, is that a thing? And they're like, you can do anything with money, right? And so it's like, if we had even an extra $10,000, you would see more stunts, you would see more action.
Someone would have been set on fire.
We're setting someone on fire.
I would have been
Yeah,
very.
Yeah, right,
That,
right.
I don't think it necessarily, like now, if we knew up front, like you got $1 million or $100,000 or whatever you got, that does shape things in the writing. But I think we would be more free to be like, should we set someone on fire? Should we set Haley on fire? Like,
I'd bet I'd name brand groceries.
yeah.
Yeah, if we got a bigger budget.
Yeah, we have better food.
Yeah,
Maybe
we'd
it-
eat better.
You'd have a lot less dialogue, it'd be more show, less tell, because the tell stuff is cheaper.
Right.
Just this inside baseball stuff, but yeah, it is what it is, so yes, there would be a lot.
Is it possible that a bigger budget would screw up the film?
Yes. Yeah, oh, I've seen it time and time again where, in fact, we've been on sets where a bigger budget screws it up, because you'll be in, even on as simple as something as dailies, where you take what they shot from the camera and you upload it so that other people can do nothing with it. So I have Sony execs yelling at me in the middle of the woods in rural Georgia, why am I not seeing these dailies? And it's slowing things down to where they stop giving money for hard drives, so now they can't finish filming because they can't dump the footage. And it's all because some exec at Sony doesn't have a feel good that we're actually working when we can't work, because, you know what I mean? So there's all the more hands in the pie and the more money you get, it can definitely cause more problems.
Yeah, people have to feel like they're doing their jobs. So you have a lot more people, it's like a ton more micromanaging on set.
I would say it's like any business, right? So if you grow your business to 100 people, you're like, oh, that's manageable, we can figure that. But if you grow your business to 500 people, now you've got all this other overhead that it's like, now we've got to manage, we have to hire people to manage the people that we're managing. and you can see where that kind of goes. So yeah, there's a really lean and mean aspect to it. Like Stanley Kubrick ran very small sets, shockingly small, right?
The guy who did Bull Durham said he almost lost the film because of that.
Yeah.
Having to send to the
Great film.
powers that be every night.
Right.
Yeah.
Imagine if that film never came out. Which there's probably 10 of those films that didn't come out.
They wanted to fire Tim Robbins.
Yeah. See, and we could talk forever about like yes. People don't think about all of the problems, and I always think, one guy said to me at one panel, like, can you tell me all the things that went right? And I said, no, but I can tell you like all the things that went wrong. Like the only thing that went right is we all still are friends and we finished it. You know, so.
How did you get
Sorry.
Eric Roberts?
Vanessa. So the woman I was speaking about earlier, I said to her, so another Inside Baseball doesn't leave this room. We had talked about, Tori and I talked about 3 people. Tori wrote that role specifically so we could plug in somebody. And it was never decided who or what or where or how. And I said, hey, what if I was like, if we could get Ray Wise. So if I don't know, you know Twin Peaks, Ray Wise. But he was like he's one of my favorites. Tori, you said.
I wanted Bill Moseley.
Bill Moseley, who we knew, great. They're all great.
He would have been good.
They all would have been good. And then Vanessa said, how about Eric Roberts?
He has such a good look for it too.
And here's I don't know if we can we say why? Yeah, I'll say why.
We
Yeah,
won't tell
so
anybody.
SAG.
He can always say no.
Yeah, so SAG is like Student Screen
Actors Guild.
Sorry, so anyway, SAG is the guild for actors, and it's basically, it's not a union, but it's like a union. And if you do a SAG production, then you can only hire SAG. There's all these rules, right? We weren't SAG at the time, and we were independent, so I was like, should we flip it and go SAG? And unless you have like a $2 million budget, they're not gonna flip. Long story short, you can't go after Ray Wise, you can't go after Bill Moseley, they're both SAG. So Eric Roberts is what's called FICOR, and FICOR sits in the middle, and they can do SAG and they can do indie. And there's a select group. Did you guys know about FICOR?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Yeah. So FICOR is this group that sits in the middle, and there's a select group of these actors that are tremendous actors, but you can get them for your indie project. And it just so happened Vanessa knew someone, I knew someone, we reached out. Eric Roberts likes haunted house movies. And plus Eric Roberts is like in 600 movies, so the dude loves working. So, and his wife is absolutely wonderful. So we contacted his wife was like the most wonderful person ever. Vanessa and Eliza are like besties now. So, long story short, connections. It all comes down to like, who do you know that can get you to here to connect these two dots, so.
This is gonna have to be the last question too, so we have time to go to Blythe.
All right. On the subject of low-budget horror, were you at all inspired by the work of George Romero?
Oh my God.
It's a
Fun
it's
fact.
a beautiful, like,
What's the comic book?
Dawn of the Dead is like one of my favorites. It's probably, everybody, well, but Dawn of the Dead to me, I go to Monroeville Mall every time. I went to Pitt, huge George Romero fan. I love everything that he ever stood for. It's one of those, like, sometimes you love a person's movies, sometimes you love a person, sometimes you love how they do things. George Romero, I literally loved everything that he did in all facets, and what he did for the community, what he did for everybody. And one fun fact, I don't even know if you did, so we did a comic book that's part of SpookT, and George Romero's son went to Thiel, and he wrote a story for the comic book. And so there's like, anything I could do to get to.
We'll have them at the merch table.
We'll have comic books. We don't have George Romero, unfortunately.
No.
But no, I don't know, you guys are at Creep Show, you guys are.
Yeah, actually, I like Night Riders.
Really?
Yeah, I love Night Riders.
Martin's great. Yeah, and that's the thing is like, I don't even think you guys aren't even from here. But just being from here, of course we love George Romero, but the world loves George Romero. So, I mean, Dawn of the Dead, you talk about when you talk about advocacy and social commentary. George Romero was one of the few people that I think that could do it and still make entertainment. When you didn't feel like you were beaten over the head with like, we get it. People like to buy things. You know?
And then some of the stuff we do, and one we know people actually work with Greg Nicotero, Luke Godfrey, Nick Morgan.
Blake.
Blake, yeah.
So the Creep Show, do you watch the show, the new Creep Show on Shudder?
I haven't.
So that's like a spin-off of the Creep Show, and that until season 3 filmed in Atlanta. So a lot of our friends were on Creep Show and worked on Creep Show. And it's like, that's holy ground, like the George stuff. So I don't think anyone can do anything in filmmaking, period, in indie horror that isn't in some way indebted to George Romero.
One more George Romero fact that you don't even know is I remember when I was I was probably not even a teenager yet, but I read in Fangoria an interview with George Romero, and they asked him like, what's the meaning of Night of the Living Dead? And he said like, it's all communication. Like they don't talk to each other, that's why they die. And that's obviously what I brought up to this movie, so it was something I was thinking about.
Good ending question.
Even though if anyone's going to the screening and doesn't have a golden ticket.